Hey guys, today we have a very special guest. A lot of you guys know him. I've talked with him before, but it is Stuart Flaherty, assistant coach at Dartmouth College, uh, assistant soccer coach, that is, for the men's side. And he gave us some great information before. And today we're going to talk about ID camps and get the perspective of a D1 coach on how we should conduct ourselves in an ID camp. So without any further ado, Stuart, thanks for coming back and talking with us again.
Thank you. I appreciate it when you call me Special, Buford.
well, you are, Stuart. And to start off, I guess we want to talk about a special thing that Dartmouth is doing for people around the country. So take it away.
Yeah, so we're, everybody listening to this is probably well aware we're coming out at the end of a lengthy dead period. You know, we haven't been on the road recruiting since November 2019, as I think the last event I watched a player at live. And on July 1st, we're going to start a roadshow of ID camps under soccer academics. We've decided on one-day satellite camps. There is a lot of logistical issues, a lot of COVID issues, a lot of problems that would involve the usual 4-day residential camp at Dartmouth. Added to the fact that I'm not sure how many parents are comfortable right now with sending their kids away to live in college dorms with, you know, kids they've never met from all over the country. That's just kind of the reality as we come out the back end of this pandemic. So we're going to run one-day satellite events. They're going to start on July 1st in Maine, and they're going to end on August 6th in Arizona. And between then, it'll be kind of an East Coast swing before Arizona. We go to Lewiston, Maine. We go to Marlborough, Massachusetts. We go to Hartford, Connecticut, where we will be at the home of the pro team, Hartford Athletic Dillon Stadium. We go to Downingtown, Pennsylvania. We'll be going to North Carolina around the Raleigh area. We'll be going to Rock Hill, South Carolina. We'll be in Georgia around the Atlanta or Marietta area. We will be at New Jersey. We'll be in Tampa, Florida. So, you know, I've sent you a link, and I hope you're gonna put it in the comments underneath. But right now, 7 of the 10 links should be active on the website, and the rest are probably 2 to 3 days away. We're just working on the exact dates and times in terms of field availability, and then those registered links will be up. If you give everybody my email, they can email me with any questions about the events. But just so I don't miss any location, if you don't mind, I'm going to read the list to you of locations quickly. Maine, Mass, New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Arizona is where these events will be.
All right. So instead of you having to go to them, they're bringing the road show to you. That's good stuff there. Okay. Let's get into some questions. I posted in the group and had a lot of great questions, and so here we go. We probably won't get to all of them. These are in no particular order, so we'll be jumping around, but should be a lot of good information. Okay, I guess the first one is, what are the coach's goals with an ID camp? What is your goal as a coach?
To see as many players as we can in as competitive an environment as we can. The advantage of an ID camp is, one, not a problem with recruiting, it's just a reality of recruiting. But if I fly to watch, you know, an NCFC academy game near you, and then I fly to Arizona and I watch a Premier game, and then I fly to Florida and I watch a team in a certain flight of Disney, and then I come back to New Hampshire and I watch a high school or a club game, and then I go to Texas and I watch an FC Dallas Academy game. It's a massive disparity in levels, to the point where, you know, a kid starring in the New Hampshire high school Premier game may not be as good or better than the kid who's not quite standing out in the FC Dallas Academy game. You know, it's really tough to project when you're seeing kids in such disparate environments. So the idea of the ID clinic or the camp is you get every kid on the same field right in front of you, you know, and by rule, it's the only time we're allowed to coach these kids. So what's really beneficial is if we see a defender and we kind of like what we see, but we want to see a bit more, we might load the teams against him, put him on one of the weaker teams at camp and see him under pressure. We might put him in a defensive drill where his numbers down, he has to defend against more attackers, or we can put 40, 50 crossing reps in to test his ability in the air. We can manipulate the environment to see what we want to see. That's not always a luxury we're afforded when we watch a game, you know, and you feel bad sometimes, because I remember driving to a prep school game to watch a goalkeeper, and I won't name the school or the keeper, and it's nobody's fault, but I got time to watch half that game because I have to get in the car and go watch another game an hour away and catch half of that game too. And it's half time and it's 6-0 and the kid hasn't faced a shot. So all I really know is his body language is good. He's got good communication. His positioning's good. He's engaged. But what's he like dealing with crosses? Don't know. What's he like when it comes to shot stopping? Don't know. What's he like when it comes to 1v1s? Don't know. So, you know, the benefit of these environments for us, the biggest one, if you were to ask us, is that we're able to manipulate the environment to see what we want to see.
Okay. Here's a question. Is it worth going to an ID camp if you weren't invited? This person says they've been told by D2 and D3 level coaches that it's not worth going to a camp if you weren't invited.
I think it's worth going, but I think what you've got to do is you've got to, before you make this decision, ask yourself what the intention is. And if the intention is to go to this ID camp to a school that hasn't invited you and hasn't talked to you and walk off the field with an offer, and that's the only scenario you're going to be happy with, probably not. You know, if what you're doing to yourself, and I encourage a lot of sophomores especially to do this, is you're interested in a certain school, right? So you're in North Carolina, let's say University of North Carolina, and you have massive interest in them. If you have the resources and the means and the schedule that allows you to go to their camp, then go to their camp. Because now you're able to look in the mirror and say, you know what? We were on that field in front of that staff for how many hours? And then if after the camp you get ignored, then you might say to yourself, okay, you know, we tried the UNC thing. We were right there. They didn't show interest. Maybe we want to go somewhere else, you know. And the added benefit of these camps, the big school camps that obviously more kids go to uninvited, whether it be Power 5 or Ivy League for academic reasons or whatever it is that school's not the only staff there. You know, I used to coach a D3 school, Bates College, and I signed, over my 6 years, I signed more than 10 kids from Ivy League camps. You know, not from the Bates camp, because you know there's going to be a certain level of kid there. I knew there was going to be a certain level of academics there, and I used to go watch those players, and when Dartmouth didn't show interest and I did from the same event, I'd find myself in a decent spot. So, you know, if you've got 5 to 10 schools around on the staff or watching the games, which almost every school of note you will have, you're actually putting yourself on the field in front of all those schools. And what these camps are is extra exposure, you know, and a lot of people try to mix that up. Oh, if I go to the camp, then I go play for the school. Well, nobody said that. You know, like if our camps gave you an Ivy League admission slot, it'd probably cost a little bit more than a couple of $100s, right? We've all seen the Netflix documentary. So if you are going in with the intention of giving yourself added exposure and giving yourself a chance to compete on a field and get a valid opinion of your game from a coach, and you don't want it to leave it the chance of then showing up at the right half of a tournament or not showing up to your games at all, yes, you should go to any camp that your son or daughter has interest in.
All right. Here's a question for specifically for camps, you know, that are cranking up this summer. You know, the first part of the question is, do they actively recruit at the ID camps? And I'm sure that's a yes. But
yeah,
if so, what recruiting classes will they be recruiting? Is it too late for the 22s to be seen?
No, not for us. Now, it's school by school, right? You know, like I would confidently guess almost every school in the nation's different now. But usually this time of year, there will be at least a percentage of D1 schools where they have filled up their roster spots. Now, does that mean they're not looking at their camps? Actually, it doesn't. You know, if they see a kid and their money is allocated and their slots are full, you know, they could see a kid at the camp that they loved and still say to the kid, if you can get in admission-wise, we'd add you to the roster. Now, is that less common at Dartmouth? Of course it is. You don't need me to tell you why, right? 11% acceptance rate, Ivy League school. But if you are a player capable of getting through the admissions process and you go to a camp and they like you, you can find yourself offered at that camp. Will you get money? No. Will you get admission support? Not if it's already allocated. But is there a route onto the team? Possibly. Now, right now, after the dead period we've just had, I'm not sure any school in America is full for their 22 class. I'm not telling you they haven't signed anybody at all, but I have a lot of friends in the game. I am yet to speak to anyone who is full in terms of all their money's allocated and all their support slots gone. And as for this year, right now, I think it will be the highest percentage of recruiting classes signed from ID camps in the history of college soccer. I really do. Probably every sport in college, to be honest with you. But I'm almost certain that's going to be the case for Dartmouth. And I know that's going to be the case for many of my friends in the game who I speak to. Now, not every kid at an ID camp you've never seen before, right? We've got a lot of kids where we've watched their game videos, we've watched their highlight videos, we've watched full games, we've been on the phone to them, we've been on Zoom, and they're going to come to the camp. We're going to have kids that we see for the first time at the camp. But there is going to be a higher percentage of 22s signed from, I would say, all camps this summer.
So the opportunity is there.
Yeah.
Okay. Another question, is there value for a student athlete that just finished their freshman year of high school to attend summer ID camps? Is it too early? And what should their goals and expectations be?
I think there's value. I think it's a different kind of value. You know, if you're a 22 and you come into these camps, I think you're right in the recruitment window. You're right under the spotlight. And it's reasonable to be expecting communication right after camp or potentially even offers right after camps. That's not going to happen with a freshman, right? Not even legal. And for legal reasons, you might not even get a communication. But is there value? Yes. Because when, two reasons. When we sign our 22 class, and the likely calendar here at Dartmouth is we're going to have our last event on August 6th. And then our head coach and myself and Chad and Drew, the staff, are going to sit down and probably within 2 or 3 weeks have offers out. And will that fill the class? Maybe, maybe not. You know, not every kid you offer says yes. There's another side to kids being told no. And then you go to your second and your third wave. So however long that takes. But I would say the first wave of offers would go out 2 to 3 weeks after camp. What a freshman could expect is when we wipe away that 22 list, we don't start from fresh. We don't have a blank whiteboard. We don't have no data. We don't have no names. We have a list of 23s. We have a list of 24s, to be honest with you. Now, are we in active contact with these kids? Not as much. You know, the percentage of our workday that is spent recruiting is primarily spent in 22s, and there may be some paperwork and financial aid and whatever to tie up with 21s. So the 23s and 24s take a little bit of a backseat. So constant weekly contact is not necessarily the indicator of interest that you think. We might think you're a top-ranked player, but the fact is you're a 23 and we're doing the 22s right now. And after we sign the 22s, we'll move on to those 23s. So to be on these lists is not without value. Does it result in weekly phone calls? No. Does it result in, you know, offers coming before your freshman year, like we all read on Twitter that Nick Saban's offered some 12-year-old, which is, to be honest with you, nonsense, that all those kind of things kind of happen? No. But it does mean your name is known. And it does mean people are more likely to watch your games, more likely to build recruiting schedules around you. And if you're within region, more likely to drive and watch your games on free weekends. So I think that is the one benefit. Now, another benefit, which is for the kid, not the college, is these are high pressure environments. They are, you know, and it's almost a shame. You know, you can see it in some kids. They got all these coaches with their clipboards. They're writing things down during the game. The kid's like, is he talking about me? Is he not? You see them looking over to the sidelines more than you would in the regular environment. And it's nerve-wracking. You usually don't perform your best the first time you're exposed to some kind of pressure, right? So these kids who, when they come into the spotlight of being that class that's getting recruited and being that class that might get an offer at the camp, and maybe even being that player where there's 3 players at that camp in your position and one's getting offered and, you know, you don't know which one, that's a lot of pressure. This is not the first time you've seen this environment. This is not the first time you've had colleges staring at you. Not the first time you've had a D1 coach coaching you. Not the first time you've been asked to communicate and play well with players you've never met before, with older players, with this, with that, new field, turf, grass, all these factors. The more times you see an environment, the more desensitized to that environment you are. And that, in my opinion, is the biggest value of doing these things as a young player, because obviously we get the conversations from parents where, you know, it was hard for him, you know, it was a lot of pressure. It's hard for him, he really wants to go to Dartmouth and you were all there looking at him. It's hard for him, he's never met the other players. You got to understand that when you're telling us things that are the case for literally everybody at the camp, we can't make, you know, almost, so, well, this kid would have been better if. So I would say you're giving yourself a silent advantage just putting that experience in the bank. And, you know, if you have a nightmare, you have a bad day, you're young, they were older, it goes tough for you, I would argue that even that's an advantage, because you go back to your club team, play against players of the same age, you'll probably find things a little less intimidating. You'll probably find things slow down a little bit for you.
All right. Here's a common question we get. How much does it matter the club you play for, the league you play for? You know, a lot of parents are told that, you know, you can't play D1 soccer unless you play ECNL or, you know, DA is no longer there, but or MLS Next, or for on the girls' side, Girls Academy or ECNL. How much does that really matter in?
I would say any sweeping statement is rarely correct. Rarely correct. And I'm not going to tell you just that non-academy players have played at Dartmouth. I'm going to tell you that the last captains of Dartmouth have been Dawson McCartney, Philadelphia Union, MLS, fair enough. Before that, Braden Salvati, DMVC Sharks in California, non-academy. Before that, Johnny Nierenberg, played for a premier club team on Long Island, Massapequa, non-academy. That's the captain of an Ivy League team who's facing top 25 opposition. All those kids spent time during their career ranked in the national top 25. All those kids won Ivy League titles. All those kids went to the NCAA tournament, often as captain of the team. So the statement, you can't go D1 if you're not true. Not true. Now, if what you're saying is, does playing for, I'm going to pick a random one, the Chicago Fire Academy give you a higher percentage chance of D1? Maybe. If you do well. You know, we go to MLS Academy events and we have names on our clipboard of kids we want to watch because they've emailed us and they're on these roster, and then we go and watch them and they're either not playing in the game at all, which happens at the academy level, or they play 5-10 minutes. Has that helped them more than a kid we go watch at Disney who plays 90 minutes and is a top 5 impact player on a premier team? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. So it's not just, I play on an academy, I've achieved something. I don't play on an academy now, I'm full of anxiety and I'm behind. It is, be honest with yourself. You know, like a lot of times asking other people is really just begging people to tell you what you want to hear. If your son went to this team, what would it look like? And if he would be on the bench or maybe not playing and missing games, would it look better to his friends because he was wearing that badge? Maybe. Would it functionally help his college recruitment process? Maybe, maybe not. It's true in both ways, right? So put your son in the best environment for him to succeed on a consistent basis and him to play well long term. And the one game or the one half that a player shows up, a college shows up, where does he look and feel his best with regards to soccer? Put your son in that environment and you've done the right thing. And if someone tells you something else worked for them, maybe it did work for them. Something didn't work for them. Maybe it didn't work for them. But that doesn't automatically mean that's the case for you. I feel like there's a lot of misinformation and assumptions going around and a lot of bad decisions made, to be honest with you.
Okay. Now, kind of in the same vein, got a question. Honestly, what caliber player does your child need to be to get Division I soccer looks?
I don't even know how to answer that. What does that mean, Buford? Like, are we going on a scale out of 10? I don't know. One thing I would ask you back to that, we got 30 players at Dartmouth, right?
Yes.
I'm not naming kids, because I love all these kids. I do. They're great. But ability-wise, there's probably a number 1 kid on the roster, right? Probably a number 30 kid on the roster. Do you think that's identical level and caliber?
No.
I don't think anybody does, right? So what caliber does he need to be? Don't know. I can tell you right now, there is probably, maybe a small handful, but there is probably starting players on D2 and D3 teams who may overtake our 30th guy caliber-wise. So caliber is a really strange thing. And it's something that people are very, very unqualified to gauge. And here's how you gauge the level of your son. Be patient, and that's a key issue that most people want to skip right over. Be patient, let it play out, and every time he's on a field, email D1, D2, and D3 coaches, NAIA if that's your interest. Every single time he's on a field, every competitive event, give them all the chance to go watch him play. If you've got the means, you've got the schedule availability, go to D1 camps, go to D2 camps, go to D3 camps. And that feedback that you get over that 6 months, there's your answer. There's your answer. Because let's say your son's a D1 player and he gets ignored for a year by every D1 school. You hear from D2s, you hear from D3s, you hear from NAIA. You never hear from the D1 schools you want to hear for a year. They can be wrong. That's one way to look at it. All 220, whatever it is, coaches, they can all be wrong. But even if they are wrong, they're still not going to sign your son. Even if they're wrong, even if your son's better than any of them realize it's still not going to happen. So the market is going to tell you what level you are. And is the market wrong? Of course it is. Of course it is. Carrie Stevenson played D3, went on to an 8 to 10 year MLS career, including all-star games. So was the college market wrong on him? Yeah, I would argue it was. You go to the NFL draft where they do their 40-yard times and they do their scouts and they've got how many paid scouts earn and how much money, and they do their Wonderlic tests. How many times is the number 1 pick in the draft the best player at his position? Very rarely.
Yes.
Very rarely. So it is not about what level your son is, because if you ask 10 different people, you'll get 10 different opinions. It's about the feedback you're getting. It's about the communication you're getting. It's about the responsiveness you're getting. And if D1 schools are saying to you, you know, we like him, there's something there, we're not completely convinced we'd like to watch him again, that's not them lying to you. That's not them brushing you off. That's probably exactly the truth. And the reason most people respond to that with, oh, why didn't you just say no, is because it's not what they wanted to hear. But most kids are maybe, Buford. You know, if I go watch a kid once, the vast majority of the time, the answer is maybe. And I get that that's incredibly annoying. But it's very, very rare that a player is so good that I will drive back to Hanover and put my reputation online and say, Bo, listen, you have to sign this kid. I know you didn't see him, but I did. You have to sign this kid. Very rare I'm going to do that, brother. It's also very rare, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it's rare I'm going to be like, yeah, you know what, no chance, hasn't got it. Even if his grades are really high, even if he's a high academic index kid, even if he gets good references, this kid just does not have the ability. The level of games we go watch, it's not very often that players are that bad. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So the answer is maybe. The answer is we want to see you again. And that causes frustration and that causes anxiety, but that doesn't mean that people aren't telling you the truth.
All right. So how can a player stand out from the masses at a camp? Say they come into your Dartmouth camp. How can that player stand out?
I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that it's easy. And the one thing I will say to you is if you want your player to stand out, and another thing that people want to jump right over, teach him to be focused and teach him to be present. Because when you tell kids that they've got to write the perfect email, and you tell kids they've got to look every coach in the eye and shake every hand, and you tell kids what questions they've got to ask at the Q&A, and you tell kids how they've got to act at water breaks because every coach is watching them, when they're not, by the way. Nobody's hawk-eyeing any kid at the camp. You tell kids that they've got to go through the night before and clean up their Twitter because we're all going to scour it the next day. You're adding anxiety. You're adding pressure. You're adding mental and emotional burden to your son that means worry about this, 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 worry about this. Play well. Play well. And all the rest of it that we like to read about and tweet about and Facebook and here's a tip for recruiting and that's a tip for recruiting, that's all going to play out over 3 to 6 months if you play well. Whatever you're good at, be good at that. Don't be a great centre-back who's great in the air and a real good ball winner, and you watch one kid meg somebody and you think he stood out, so now you're trying to do the same thing. Not a good idea. What are you good at? Be good at that. And then another way to separate yourself, what's your body language like? What's your communication like? Are you able to fit into this environment? Or are you just telling yourself that you don't know anybody? When the ball goes out for a throw-in, are you the first one to move, pick it up and take it? Or are you the one who just tries to take a breather when the ball goes out for a goal kick? Are you the first one giving you the goalkeeper the option? Because I tell you, free kicks, whistle blows, throw-ins, they are the easiest place to spot lazy players. The easiest. Making it the easiest area of the game for a player to separate themselves and look a little bit unique. I know there's a famous story from one of his books that Anson Dorrance will tell you that he wanted to recruit Mia Hamm before she even touched the ball. And I believe him. I don't think that's a story for his book. I absolutely believe him. I watched one of our Dartmouth players playing an academy game where he was playing up front against a very good level of opponent. It was the Atlanta United Academy, and he might have touched the ball twice and a half, but I rated him. And I was convinced he would do well because of the way he pressed, because of the way he communicated with his teammates, because he made 15 to 20 runs in behind and didn't get frustrated when he didn't get the ball. He just made another one. And here we are 2 years later, and I'm still convinced that he's going to be all Ivy League and one of the best players. So they're probably ways to separate yourself. But for the window of time that this camp exists, focus 99% of your time and effort on the field and worry about off the field stuff when we're off the field.
Okay. Now, here's one that you may not have a lot of experience with, but got a lot of questions on this subject.
Why are you making me nervous building this up?
How can a parent tell if it's a true ID camp where they're going to be recruited, or if it's just a camp that's revenue for the university?
How can you tell? It's a tough one to answer, actually. Tough one to answer. I would say, and now you've put me on the spot here, but I would just say watch the level of effort and energy from the coaches. And if you are seeing coaches invested in the kids, you are seeing coaches engaged in the kids, you are seeing the coaches watching the game, taking notes, writing things down, and that presence and focus I'm talking about for the kids, if you see that in the coaches, I would say that they are recruiting. And if you are saying, if you're seeing coaches talking to each other, not watching the game, coaches on their phones, head coach not even there, shows up for 5 minutes, talk to parents, goes back to his office, whatever, maybe they're indicators. But I will tell you that it's very, very rare. And I have never personally experienced a school to not be recruiting in an ID camp. What I have experienced of players who've attended ID camps, it's not went their way, and they have said that it wasn't a real ID camp and no one was getting recruited, even though other kids got signed from that camp. Just being honest, I've heard that a lot. Not only have I been a college coach, I've been a club coach, and I've heard the parents, oh yeah, they weren't really recruiting. And then I find out firsthand from the school that they have actually signed kids from the same event they weren't recruiting from. So I guess I would say don't be cynical about this. You know, I mean, if you are viewing this as extra exposure, nobody's saying it's mandatory. Nobody's forcing you to go. Nobody's got you at gunpoint saying you have to go at this camp. But if you feel like this investment of time is a worthwhile expenditure of resources, an opportunity for your son to get on the field and get seen by these coaches, then go and do it. And if you don't. But I would say it's disappointing if people are walking around saying that nobody was recruiting an ID camp, if the truth is their son or their daughter didn't get recruited. I'm not sure about that, man. I would at least find out, was anybody signed from the camp?
Okay. Now, here's one. When does a player know that the intention and interest is serious from a university, and when is it time to let go of a university and look somewhere else?
Yeah, there's probably levels of that. You know, email is probably the first level of interest. You're going to get emails, right? It doesn't mean they're going to sign you. Phone call is probably the next. And why I say that is, you know, like you only make so many phone calls in a day. You know, a phone call is you're not doing anything else. You can't copy and paste a phone call. You can't send a phone call out to your database. So it's a little bit greater in terms of interest. If they ask for your grades, they're probably interested. If they don't ask for your grades, they don't even know if you went to high school. So they kind of just superficial. You know, if you've got past the end of junior year and they don't want to know what your grades are, that's not a good sign at all. And obviously, if they invite you to a camp and you don't hear back from them 2-3 weeks after camp, probably not a good sign. If they go watch your game and it's radio silence after, I can almost guarantee you that they go to a tournament weekend, they're emailing somebody after that tournament. And usually it's a good number of kids. So if that's not you, then that is what it is. But as far as when to let go, you know, like I would say, what are your options? You know, if you are heavily interested in a D1 school and they are ignoring you and you have other options and they're saying, hey, man, we'll support you. We need an answer by then. It's very rarely a good idea to give up a guaranteed offer for a school that's been telling you maybe for 6 months. And that maybe may never tell you no. You know, if you're, I'm going to call it everywhere state. I'm not going to name a school here, but let's say everywhere state are recruiting 2 right backs, and both those right backs are good enough. The fact is, one of those right backs is getting signed, and one of them isn't. They're not going to say no to that number 2 right back, ever, probably. To be honest, you can say it's moral, immoral, right, wrong. They're not going to say no to number 2. They're going to keep them there. So if number 1 falls through, they have the option. So then if number 2 has all offers and you say no to these other offers because this may be your hope and turns into a yes, that's your decision. You take responsibility for that. Most of the time, it's not a good decision. So, you know, if you have a school that is going to give you a good education, it's going to give you a good soccer experience, you have a coach that is visibly committing time and energy to you, then that's often the better option. Now, if you say to yourself, the other school is so much better, and this happens in the Ivy League, you know, I want to come to Dartmouth whether I go on a soccer team or not, because it's an Ivy League school. I'm going to wait right till the end, and if Dartmouth tell me no, I'm just going to Dartmouth, then that's a separate issue. But if it's about soccer, you should be gauging your decision halfway on what you want and halfway on what's coming back to you, because one too many kids, and here's my experience from Bates, I would have centre-back 1, and my deadline would come round from admissions on November, and I'd give him an offer. And I'd say, offer's there if you want it. I'm going to give you 3 weeks, and I can't afford to give him any more, because if I wait 6 months for him to say no to me, I didn't lose my number 2 centre-back. I lost 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and I'm signing who knows who, right?
Yes.
So I need to give him timelines. So then he'll say no to me. Then 2 months later, he'll circle back around and this D1 school said, no, I'd like to take your offer. The offer's gone. You know, and the kid will be upset and the parent will complain and they'll say, I went back on the offer and all this, but the deadline was given and the offer is gone. And then they'll say they're, a little bit petty, but I know the player you signed, I'm better than. Well, you might be, but you said maybe, and they said yes. So I wouldn't turn down solid concrete offers for a seemingly more glamorous option just because you're crossing your fingers and hoping so. Does that answer that?
That certainly does. All right, now here's one. What would be your best advice on the importance of self-marketing on social media? And this person said, their kids don't do it because they have the impression that it's bragging or being conceited among their friends.
Understandable. I don't believe it's self-promotion, especially not video clips. Look, this happened. Self-promotion to me is I am going to score a hat-trick this week because I'm awesome. Scoring a hat-trick and posting it after you did it, big difference. Big difference. The wording around it, just have a read of it. Does it seem arrogant or does it seem normal? But if you were, there's an old saying, right? Show your work, be proud of it. So don't go around saying that other kids aren't good or you're better than this guy or you're better than that guy. That's self-promotion and that's ugly. We get kids who will flat out write us emails and I don't know how they think it's going to look, but it'll be like, here's my video. It's a high school game. My team's not that good, but I play pretty well. Ugh. No, that's self-promotion. Don't like that at all. But hey, here's the game. Think I had a good game. Would you please watch? It's a subtle difference, but it's a massive difference, right?
Yeah.
If you're talking about the kids knocking each other down, I believe as a parent, there's a life lesson teaching moment, right? Because if you want to go places in life, the people right around you are going to knock down, are going to make sly comments, are going to give you the put downs. There is a sad reality in human nature where your friends tend to want you to do well until you're doing better than them. How many times you see a kid try and get a new habit or lose some weight and it's comments and it's comments and it's comments, or somebody who's an adult is a smoker or a drinker and they want to stop and all they get is peer pressure from their friends of keep going, why are you stopping for? You need to hang out with us. So there is a sad part of human nature where if you want to achieve your goals in life and you want to do something special, at times it is a solo journey, it is. And at times the people that you thought were your friends will make comments and put downs and put you down. But I think that is very much something to learn and become stronger dealing with than to not do it, because these people give you comments. Because what you're going to find in life is that when you don't post your soccer videos to promote yourself because you don't like the criticism, you are going to get that criticism from something else. You did something else wrong. And if I'm wrong here, the best active basketball player, probably LeBron James. Put his name into Twitter and see how many people have got something to say about how bad he is at basketball. This is human nature. This is what you deal with. If you truly want to succeed, you can't be avoiding and trying to shield yourself from other people criticizing. You have to learn to deal with it. And trust me, that doesn't stop in college. That probably becomes magnified in college. We drive to Princeton to go to the game. They got 1,000 people in the crowd. They got a drunk student section. You think those kids want us to win? You think they're saying nice things? Absolutely not. And it cannot faze you.
Okay, great stuff. Here's a question. We got a lot of keeper parents in the group. How should keepers look at ID camps?
The same.
I heard the gamut from this camp was great for the keepers till they didn't even bother with the keepers.
Stats beforehand. I would say it is a massive oversight and borderline disservice if you don't employ a goalkeeper coach on an ID camp. So yeah, I would just ask beforehand who's coaching the keepers. Now here at Dartmouth, I played goalkeeper for 17 years. Like to think I was pretty decent. Yeah, probably a few people tell you I wasn't, but what did we just talk about? And Coach Bo played in the MLS, 12-year pro career, won the MLS as a goalkeeper. So we're right up there, top 1% of the country, I would say, for goalkeeping experience on the staff.
All right. And what should they expect from for goalkeepers to be doing in camp, should they have their own separate drills over there? And then
Yeah, I guess that's kind of what I'm saying. I'd be shocked nowadays if you didn't find an ID camp where at least a significant portion of it was keepers separate with a goalkeeper coach, doing technique, doing handling, doing cross balls, doing, you know, the details and the functional parts of goalkeeping. But then obviously, because you don't recruit the keeper from a fundamental session, you'll go into small group work and then the keepers will be in the games. So yeah, I guarantee you at our camps that you will get a significant goalkeeping session as part of the camp. I'd be surprised if it wasn't the case at every camp, but again, ask.
Okay. And I've got a question. I think I know the answer to it, but
No.
okay, moving on.
Right now.
If you let's say that your kid, there's a good ID camp, great soccer program, but your kid is not necessarily chomping at the bits to go to that school. Should they go anyway because coaches know other coaches? And do you as a college coach, let's say the kid doesn't fit exactly for you, but you know the kid can play. You know, do you have any problems referring?
We make sure we do it.
School?
We make sure we do it. You know, every year, if there's a kid that we know we would have really liked you, but they're usually the phone call where we tell them they're not going to go with them. We give them an option, saw them at camp. We've already put a reference in for you. Now, do those kids want that option? Not always. But, you know, we very rarely turn away a kid who was right on our doorstep from another school. We know we don't pick up the phone to another school and sort of give them a safety net and give them a second option. As an international kid going to the NESCAC, I don't even think by rule I can name kids who are coming out of high school, but he's going to the NESCAC and he's going because we saw him and we liked him and we developed a relationship with him, and then it wasn't going to happen for me. And I obviously know the NESCAC very well. I was in it for 6 years as a head coach, and so we kind of directed him there, and that worked out well. So we will do that for you. Couple of things that may potentially stop that is sometimes we say that and the kid's just not interested. You know, it's D1 or nothing. Not always a great idea, but it is what it is. Or it's Ivy League or nothing, whether I play soccer or not. Fair enough. Or we can't lie. Do you know what I mean? It's like if we don't think you're good enough for Dartmouth, and it's like, okay, you know, would you speak to another school for me? You know, if we think we're not sure about that either, these are our reputations. We can't go lying to people. But if we believe you're of the level of the school you're talking about, 100%, we would do that. And you know, I think when you build a reputation as a program, you know, when you're recruiting a kid, it's probably not the last time you're going to deal with that club they play for. It's not even always the last time you're going to deal with that family. And it's not a good idea to be in the business of just cutting people off cold, never speaking to them, because you can develop a certain reputation, and you develop a different kind of reputation of, yeah, you know what, didn't sign him, but we had a good experience. They went another direction and they helped us out with this school. Can you keep everybody happy? You run a Facebook group, you tell me the answer. But do we make an honest effort to invest that time of a phone call and a reference to every kid who comes to our camp? Yes, we do. Yeah.
Okay. And got a lot of questions. We have a lot of Canadians in our group, and you know, they've been under lockdown, not playing soccer.
Mm-hmm.
What would your advice be to them? I think, you know, with you being in the Northeast, your advice would be to get to your camp, obviously.
Yeah.
Because they don't have video and, you know, communicate. But what advice would you give to Canadians who?
I mean, you can't invent things. I mean, the reality is, if you lock down, you got no recent video. Do you have video before COVID? And you explain why you send an 18-month-old video. You know, do you have the ability to now start getting out on the field and getting yourself seen? Just do the best you can. You know, the world has been shut down for 12 to 18 months, you know, and like people have never been more forgiving of inactivity in terms of, okay, right, well, you know, let's have a look. You know, send me video from 18 months ago. Just do what you can do. But I can't delete lockdown. It's been a very real disadvantage. I haven't been on the road recruiting since November 2019. I get it. So just do the best you can do. And again, I know a lot of this is means and resources. If you are able to go put yourself into positions where you are on the field in front of coaches, that is absolutely irreplaceable when it comes to value. The next best thing, videos as soon as your games start, or videos from pre-COVID.
Okay. When you're evaluating a player that comes to your camp, how much stock do you put on how he's playing now versus potential of how you can see him being developed in 2 to 3 years?
The answer is both. The answer is both. You know, like we do look at kids and we make projections of how they could end up after 4 years of a college weight room, how they could end up after 4 years of playing for us, how you could end up after 4 years of our coaching in our system and what we like to think of as better tactical education. So, but what you got to realize is it's not only your son that has potential, and if there is 15, 20, 25 kids playing better right now, your son's the only one that's going to improve.
Yeah.
Your son's the only one with potential, or are the ones above him going to improve too? So, yes, we do that. But I think sometimes you've got to make sure that you are projecting. It's fine to project with optimism about your own son, but make sure you're not just being blindly optimistic. That we obviously have to see something right now for you to come on this journey of development with us. We can't just go signing anybody because 4 years with us is going to make you a player. Do you realize how arrogant that would be? We have to put a decent level of stock in how you are playing right now.
All right. Well, Stuart, I know you got a lot of stuff to do and you're really busy gearing up for this dead period to finally end.
Nothing better than talking to you, Buford.
All right. And just one more time, if you could just kind of mention your East Coast swing, where you guys will be.
Yeah, East Coast in Arizona. So it's Soccer Academics. Let me just get the document up and I'll give you the dates and the locations. July 1st, Lewiston, Maine. July 7th, Marlborough, Massachusetts. July 12th, Capelli Sports Complex in New Jersey. July 14th, Dillon Stadium in Hartford, Connecticut. July 16th, United Sports Complex in Downingtown, Pennsylvania. July 26th, Rock Hill, South Carolina, Manchester Meadows. And then 3 camps that we're just working now, and there might be some movement in date, but we're looking to book fields for is North Carolina in the Raleigh area, Georgia in Atlanta or Marietta, and Tampa, Florida. And we also have August 6th in Scottsdale, Arizona. Socceracademics.com. These locations are all on there right now, or will be very soon.
Okay, well, Stuart, it's been a pleasure. You've given us so much great information. Appreciate that. And good luck to the Big Green coming up. And
why are we delaying on that? Is there someone else you want to win the Ivy League, Buford? What's going on here?
Well, hopefully I'll be able to let you know in a year.
Right.
All right. Well, thanks, Stuart, and come back and talk to us real soon.
Will do. Appreciate it.
All right. Bye-bye.